Okay, so this man is fascinating, and it's weird that I don't see like more people in the ACOTAR fandom like hyping this man up, because honestly, like if we're looking for morally gray book boyfriends, like look no further than right here. And on top of that, the teeth, like he still has his teeth as a character. Like he's still morally gray as fuck. And he's still very mysterious and very interesting. And I feel like when he gets recontextualized or we get to know more about him, it's not going to go the same way as Resand is. So I feel like even if he is rehabilitated as a character, I'm still going to love him. And also, like, look at him. Like, he's pretty. So the first time we meet Jurian is kind of an ACOTAR, like he's the ACOTAR one. He is this eyeball in a ring, and then he's a finger around Amarantha's neck. And the reason why this is because back during the war, like the war to stop humans from being enslaved or whatever, I say or whatever because we haven't really seen much flashbacks from this war, and I feel like this war is something we need to see, like eventually, just to understand where everybody is now. Like I don't think we can get into Eris without getting into the first war, which is a whole other thing. It fascinates me. It's part of the reason why I'm writing the Neris fanfic. But back to Jurian. So the reason why he is an eyeball in a ring and a finger around Amarantha's neck is because during the war, when Jurian was one of the commanders of the human armies, he caught the eye of Amarantha's sister Clythia. And Jurian had like a dalliance with Miriam, who left him for Draken. Draken? What's his name? Ugh! I don't know that guy's name, but like Featherman, like the big feather wing guy. So Jurian is still dating Miriam. Like Miriam, I think, is in the process of leaving him when he crosses over to seduce Clythia, because Clythia has fallen madly in love with him. And Clythia is like an asshole. Like she's a slaver, like Amarantha is. Like she's the worst. So Jurian seduces her, and then he murders her, and then chops up her body and scatters her to the winds, which is absolutely brutal. And I think when we first hear about the situation, like we associate Jurian with this incredible brutality. And Amarantha does too, because she catches him, she divests him of his body, sets his eye in a ring, puts his finger around his neck, and he is basically forced to watch Amarantha do everything that she does to Tamlin, to Rhysand, to everybody under the mountain. And he's been like that the entire time since the war, which is like over half a millennia at this point. So the first time we see Jurian, all of that has already happened, and then he's just this eyeball, and and it's like a thing, like he's hyped up as to be like this incredible villain guy, like on top of what Amarantha had already done. Like Amarantha is villainizing him. Like how fucked up is he? And then Akamath happens, and Hybern does some shenanigans, makes him a body. And now he's alive again, and he is present when Nesta and Elaine are thrown into the cauldron. And we see him back and forth during ACOTAR, and Jurian's kind of like, he's being very cryptic. He's saying shit like, oh, like, Feyre, I think, I thought you were locked up here with us. Turns out we're locked up here with you. Like, shit like that. Like, he's being very cryptic. And then it comes out towards the end of ACOTAR that Jurian was always a spy. And he looks at Rhysand and Morgan, and he's just like, the fuck is wrong with both of you? You guys know me. You know I would never, ever take Hybern's side for any reason. And neither of you were smart enough to look inside my mind. And that is an interesting point for ACOTAR, considering that Rhysand and Feyre have had multiple conversations about mind reading and when it's okay to do it and when it's appropriate to do it. And Rhysand actually resorts to torture and using Azriel to torture his political rivals and like his enemies, rather than read their minds. So for Jurian to be like, the fuck is wrong with you? Why didn't you just read my mind? I was wide open. I made myself purposely wide open so that you could read my mind, and you didn't. This brings us to post-ACOTAR, where Jurian is hanging out with Lucian and Vasa in the human lands. And the last we hear about him, I think, is when they're asking Lucian, like, oh, like, how's everybody in the Band of Exiles or whatever? Like, how's Vasa and Jurian? And Lucian's like at each other's throats, as they like to be. So he's found some people that he likes. And I think we see him like in passing in Akasif, but like he's kind of past like, he's not that he's past importance, but like he's not really around so much during ACOSF. And I think there's just something really interesting about Jurian as a character that I feel like the fandom just has not seen this man's potential yet. Like, I get it, like he's not a bad boy, he's not a redhead, like he's just an average human guy who's done like terrible things. But like if we're all looking for morally gray book boyfriends, look no further. Like look at him. It turns out after all this time being a day one Lucian girly and like a diehard As girly, it turns out deep down beneath all of those layers is just a feral Jurian girly. And if I'm just part of the Jurian army by myself, that is fine.